this is the second largest populated lesbian, area in the country, and we had nothing, and it was time to have something because we're here, and so it was time. We just jumped off, and it went beyond our wildest dreams for the first one. I think just to bring all the women in town together, and this march is for, all women, wherever they fall on that spectrum. We're not putting people in a box, not having to identify who you are. That's up to you, but, our issues are the same as everyone's issues.
What is the #1 issue among the Dyke community, in your opinion?
Ooh, I'm going to say visibility. We live in a town that is not only the second largest lesbian population, but probably the third largest gay male in the state of California. And we just really don't exist. And we need to exist. We don't have a gay bar. We have nowhere to gather. So maybe something will spring out of this and someone will create a place to gather.
For me, the goal is always Dyke visibility and to get people to know that lesbians are everywhere and we want to be respected just like everybody else. I'm here because lesbians are important to me, Dykes are important to me, and feminist women are important to me, and I think there are a lot of them are going to be here tonight. And I also am the Director of Communications at the June L. Mazur Lesbian Archives. And this is a very historical event. Really important to show up because visibility is what moves us forward politically. Getting people to know that lesbians are everywhere, we're your friends, we're your neighbors, we're not bizarre, weird creatures that you don't totally relate to and a different species. And I think that's really important that people see us for who we really are.
And you talked a little bit about this, but what is the historical significance of this event?
Well, I really think it's amazing that Long Beach, California has had one of the largest women's communities in the country that I've ever known, and they've never had a Dyke March before now. That blows me away. I mean, Pride is here since 1984, so I really don't know why they haven't had it before, but it is a historical day.
We are doing 30 years of Pride. Now, us lesbians who remember back then, remember that the women were there first. Gay pride got started because the women said no more in Long Beach. And now we're 30 years later and we're having our first damn Dyke March. It's not that it's a bad thing. It's like, where have we been? We've been working in the trenches to make things happen for our community. We're now going to say, wake up guys, the lesbians, the Dykes are still in the house. We're not going to fret about all the issues that exist in our community. We know, as back in 1993, when the March on Washington came and the Dyke March started, and let you guys know the Canadians started all this Dyke shit, okay, back in the early 70s and things like that. They were the ones who did it, so hooray for Canada. But nevertheless, in 1993, we marched in Washington. And what was the most fabulous part for me is when they started pulling people off to go to jail, there was a group of 15 little baby Dykes, about this little, and I said baby Dykes. And they put their arms together and they say, oh, when the Dykes go marching in, oh, when the Dykes go marching in. And then they were like, oh, the police were like, oh shit, what's this? But the truth was that the Dykes stepped off that march. They were the first ones to be drugged to jail. So remember, we were there 30 years ago and before that, because the only other thing we had back in the day, if those of you who remember, is SCWU. And SCWU was there for the lesbians. But Long Beach, thank God, this is our first march, never the last march, because we're always going to be here. I want to bring a lady up here who, again, many of the women who lead this community, they lead it and nobody knows who they are. The person that I want to bring up is Elisa McConaughey. Elisa, come here. Elisa, come on up here. Elisa is one of the leaders and the presidents of Long Beach Lesbian Gay Pride that I think many people have forgotten. But folks, look at this lady. She's a very powerful lady. Anissa, thank you.
My name is Robin Tyler, and I am a Dyke. D-Y-K-E. When I was at the 1993 March on Washington, they asked me to put what I was underneath to sign a piece of paper for C-SPAN. So I signed it Robin Tyler Dyke, and I didn't know that they'd run it under my name when I was on television, right? So I'm out there speaking and everything, things like, Martina, you've only got 2 more minutes, right? And they're running Robin Tyler Dyke. So my mother calls me backstage and says, what does D-Y-K-E mean? And I said, don't worry, Mom, it means Doctor of Young Karate Experts. Yeah, Diane and I were actually the first couple to get married because, in LA County, because we were the first lesbian plaintiffs in the lawsuit that brought marriage equality to California. So I'd like you to meet my wife, and she still is my wife, Diane Olson. Come on over, honey. No, come here. We had a little problem last year. She wanted me to carry her baby. And, you know, I didn't sign up for that. So, yes, I'm a dyke. And people say, well, what do you think of the word dyke? Well, I'll tell you what I think of the word dyke. I think it's great because what a dyke is a lesbian warrior. It means rather than knocking on the door and saying, please, can we have our rights, we kick in the door and we demand our rights. That's a dyke. I don't understand why. And by the way, you don't have to be a lesbian to be a dyke. My good friend Gloria Allred, who is not a lesbian, is a dyke as far as I'm concerned. And I want to say something before I go on. If a woman is born into a man's body, she is still a woman. And we need to tell that to the Michigan Women's Music Festival. We do not have the right to define for other people how they identify from the gender perspective. And so I would like to welcome anybody that's in transition, has transitioned, or hasn't transitioned. Anybody that wants to march with the dykes, to fight back, to be political, to not take shit, you're a dyke. You know, today is Idaho. Do you know what Idaho is? Right, what's Idaho? Idaho is the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, to stop violence against LGBT people, and it happens all over the world. And today 50 people met in Georgia, not Atlanta, Georgia, but Georgia, the country, and thousands of people broke through to beat up the 50 LGBT people that were there. Thousands broke through the police line, and we haven't seen violence like that in decades. And the police had to get those people out of there. So as we're standing here tonight, I want to stand here in solidarity with our brothers and sisters that were attacked in Georgia today. I don't know why we have given up identifying as lesbians. You know, we are different than men. And different doesn't mean more than or less than, it just means different. But what's so different about us is that we do not have equal rights in this country as women. That's right. Despite equal pay, the Equal Pay Day that John Kennedy passed. By the way, this is Linda Montgomery, my bodyguard. Yes. Right, this was too heavy for me, so she volunteered to, don't guard it too well, all right? Anyway, all right, so we still get 77 cents on the dollar. That is not equal, and we want to fight back, right? Military, the rapes in the military and sexual abuse in the military has risen by 33%. And what do we want to do? Fight back. I want to hear it from you. Fight back. Okay, equal pay for equal work. What are we going to do? Fight back. All right, let's talk about Prop 8. I was at the Supreme Court. Diane and I went for that hearing, and we heard them talk about Prop 8. Right, we want them to repeal Prop 8, but you know what? Justice is not just us. And if they repeal Prop 8 and marriage comes back to California, what about the other states? What about Mississippi and Alabama? I want to tell you that the U.S. Attorney representing the Obama administration, and I voted for Obama, but the U.S. Attorney says, oh, we're not going to ask them to overturn DOMA in the Supreme Court. We're going to do it state by state because President Obama believes in states' rights. Well, you know what? President Obama should be signing a national civil rights bill to protect LGBT people for the right to marry, the right to work, the right to serve, and so forth. We cannot do it state by state. So on the day of the decision, if they do repeal Prop 8, and we think also they will repeal DOMA Section 3. DOMA Section 3 is the part that says once somebody is married, same-sex couples, you have to give them federal benefits. And that'll be great. So we'll have everything in California. But that's not good enough. That is not a victory. We want on that day to get, on the day of the decision, we want to get out and we want to say, that's great. We now have justice in California. But what about the rest of the country? What about all those red states? And we need to keep calling for a civil rights bill for all of us so that gay rights don't just happen in California and New York and 10 other states, and to hell with the rest of the country. We need not to be selfish. I would love to see a gay pride like you have in Long Beach, in Mississippi, or in Alabama, right, without them being attacked. All right, rape is up. I don't want to be depressing around women's rights, by the way, but you know, a lot of people say, oh, I'm so afraid to call myself a feminist. What does it mean? What it means is that you don't take shit, that you're concerned about women's issues and children's issues. And the marriage issue, and I've been working on this since 1974. By the way, 2 gay men were married in 1971. It was legal. They're still married today. They were married in Minnesota. I don't know if you know that. And in 1974, 2 men were married in Arizona. So this is not a new issue. It's just become popular now. And so we need to understand that all over the world, I come from Canada, we have total equal rights there. How come all of these countries all over the world have total equal rights for us, and we're sitting here still agreeing to crumbs off the table? On the day of the decision, I hope you have a huge rally here in Long Beach, and as soon as you're through crying over DOMA Section 3 being repeated and the fact you can get married in California, let them hear loudly and clearly that we will not stay off the streets until everybody in this country has rights. And you know why you're going to do that? Because we're dykes. And what do dykes do? We fight back. So on the day of decision, go to dayofdecision.org. Try to organize in Long Beach. And I am really thrilled that you're doing it. This is no time not to be political. Of all the times when there's a depression in the United States, when rights are being revoked, when a drone can fly over and take pictures of us and know who we all are, this is no time to be passive. So thank you very much for having the Dyke March. Thank you for identifying as dykes and fight back. Thank you.
For those of us who marched as trans, genderqueer, gender nonconforming, or an ally, we came because the Dyke March is absolutely an event that has a history of including the excluded. And as trans, gender nonconforming, genderqueer, allied people, we march because we've been excluded too, and we want to be included. Dyke marches have a very beautiful, robust, spirited history, and we know that you don't have to be a woman to be a dyke or to have dyke spirit, so we're out here with all of our dyke spirit tonight.
I'm here because it's a celebration of not just women, but men and the LGBTQ community. I identify as bisexual, and I was invited by friends who identify as transgender. And I think one of the biggest reasons why I'm here, I also attend like Long Beach Pride and the parade and the festival, but this is something really unique. I think that women coming together is really important. I think that recognizing that the LGBTQ community is actually really more diverse than what the mainstream portrays is so important. And here in Long Beach, we're one of the biggest cities and one of the biggest LGBTQ populations out there. It makes sense that we have this celebration.